party people. Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I am your host as always, Jeff Stormer, and this week on the show I am joined by Lilliana for a playthrough of her game, The World Through Your Eyes. The World Through Your Eyes is a two-player role-playing game about telling the stories of two worlds that are vastly different from one another through the eyes of two soulmates. The themes can be played romantically or platonically, but the focus is on the connection between these two characters despite their radically different backgrounds, although your worlds apart, in that metaphorically or literally, your love endures and you can share in what makes you different just as much as what brings you together. This game is beautiful and emotional and just has some incredible world building in it, and I absolutely loved playing it. I really loved the story that we told together, and I really think you're going to enjoy listening to it. In addition to designing The World Through Your Eyes, Lilliana is also a cast member on Into Deep, a Dungeons & Dragons 5e actual play on the Rule of Lore Twitch channel. You can find more about that at twitch.tv/Rule of Lore. You can find more about The World Through Your Eyes at lillianapolis.itch.io, or you can check the show notes for more information. And with all that said, why don't we go ahead and throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. This week I am joined by Lilliana. Lilliana, thank you so much for coming on Party of One.
Thank you for having me.
Real quick, at the top of the show, before we dive in, why don't you take a moment to let our lovely listeners at home know about what we are playing this week, as well as anything else you've got going on that you might want them to know about.
Hi. This week, we are playing The World Through Your Eyes, a two-player, card-based role-playing game that tells the story of two soulmates who are separated by different worlds, whether it be literally or metaphorically, and how they come together. This is a game where you draw cards, answer questions, ask questions, and you play as two soulmates who are maybe romantically destined to be together, maybe platonically destined to be together. It's fairly open in that way. And yeah, this is a game I designed and released on Valentine's Day.
I mean, that's a good, like, you know, sometimes it's all about timing, and sometimes it's all about going, this is the day that this is going to drop, and I see it coming, and I know exactly when I need to put this out in the world.
It was too good for me I was pretty much finished the week before. I was like, this is almost in a publishing state, and I went, it's Valentine's Day next week. Time to get it into publishing state, and it was, and I'm quite proud of it.
Sometimes you got to make that, like, there's nothing more satisfying than making that move and being able to go, yes, I'm putting this out on Valentine's Day.
Yes, it was incredible. Aside from this game, you can find me Tuesdays at around 7:30 Eastern time, where I do a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition actual play with an all LGBTQ cast. Over on twitch.tv/Rule of Lore. It is called Into Deep. We started out using the Waterdeep Dragon Heist adventuring module and quickly veered off track to our own unique, very gay story, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I am so excited to be playing The World Through Your Eyes today. Like, this is a game that is very specifically up my alley in a lot of ways, and I could not be more excited about it. So why don't we go ahead and dive in? Like you said, we're going to be telling the stories of two worlds, of two people from two worlds that are vastly different from one another through the eyes of two soulmates. These can be romantic or platonic, but the focus is on the connection between two characters despite completely different backgrounds. And so with that, I'm going to throw it over to you. Walk us through how we get started and take the wheel and guide us through the game.
Okay. So the first thing we will need is a deck of playing cards, which I have for us. It's a very cute green Fey deck that I got from a very good friend of mine. So I felt like it was fitting for this.
That feels nice. That feels right. I mean, shocking. Like, that is a thing that I've recently moved into a new space, and now that I have more space for stuff, I feel like I need to invest in playing cards in the same way that I've invested in dice. I feel like I have one deck that I got at a dollar store years ago that I may or may not know where it is at any given moment. And I feel like I need some thematic mood. I need some mood cards. I've got my mood dice for different characters, and I need to really invest in some mood playing card decks.
Having a nice deck of cards is very nice. I'm quite fond of this one. The second thing we will need is a shared document or some other way to share notes. Do you mind if I share a blank Google Doc with you?
Yes, please.
I have sent it over your way. And then after that, what you need is a heart full of love and a mind full of wonder. I know I've got mine.
Give me just a second. Yes, I do have mine ready.
Wonderful.
I should be good.
Okay. So now we move on to getting started. The first thing you should each do is come to an agreement on the nature of your soulmates. Are you star-crossed lovers destined to be together? Are you best friends across the vast chasm of space itself? Are you two opposite species learning about the other's world through an inexplicable soul link? Regardless of the context, you are fated to end up together, whether you like it or not. Each of the players must establish their character and a basic concept for the world. So first of all, what kind of story do we want to tell here? Do we want to tell something romantic? Do we want to tell something explicitly not romantic? Or do we want to play out something and see where it goes?
I'm on team see where it goes, at least initially, and I'm trying to decide where I want to go in terms of rounding it in reality or fantasy. Yeah. Do you have a preference?
I've played it a few different ways. I think all are fun. I had the thought of interstellar fantasy, which is the trappings of fantasy, but like in a sci-fi setting where like you're going from place to place and planet to planet, but it's all with fantasy over skin, and that's been something that's been up my alley for the past couple weeks.
That is space fantasy is entirely my jam, and I think that's kind of why. Now that you've put it out there, I feel like I really want to chase after that. That feels like a good energy to run with.
Yes.
So, I want to propose that I think different planets feels good.
Cool.
I think that a good planetary boundary between two people feel good. I don't know if we're romantic. I don't know if we're platonic, but that feels like a good starting place for our relationship.
Wonderful. So now we each figure out where we're from. And to establish your world, ask yourself the question, what does my home look like? And then to establish your character, give them a name and pronouns and describe how they look and what they do in their home. Whether that's, career or just sort of hobbies, how that sort of develops. I myself, I find I'm quite fond of the sort of naturalistic parts of fantasy, sort of like plant people, ents, things of that nature. So I think maybe I come from a very kind of wooded, kind of green. You know how in sci-fi shows and a lot of fantasy, planets are, monoclimate planets. So I probably come from like a big jungle planet. And I think I think it is beautiful, green, lush, untamed in the sort of traditional sense. But when you sort of, you look at it through that traditional fantasy sense, it's, there aren't castles or anything, but there's still places where civilization thrives.
I keep coming back to the same answer for what my homeworld looks like, and it's the answer that made me laugh, and sometimes you got to go with the thing that makes you laugh. My homeworld looks like a soundstage.
Perfect.
It looks like a rock quarry with half of a movie set dropped on it.
Oh, I love that.
And I am visualizing for my character along the same lines. Like, I'm getting B-movie energy from my character, very specifically, and I'm picturing like human with plasticky metal bits taped on is the best way. Like, I'm envisioning very like a Star Wars Lobot situation where it's just like a guy with a metal thing
Excellent.
on, and like I think that my name is Tarks. I think his pronouns, and I think Tarks is, I think it is generic waste planet. And it is a Tarks on his planet is I don't think it is. They are. I don't think that the cybernetic pieces of Tarks are additive. I don't think they have been planted on. I think they are naturally a sort of biomechanical people, a biomechanical species. And so like it is naturally there are bits of metal and like metal installations sticking out of bodies, and that kind of aesthetic runs across the people from my homeworld.
Awesome. For my character, I'm sort of picturing. Have you watched Doctor Who?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you remember the Ninth Doctor, episode 2? I believe her name is Jabez.
I can look it up. I almost certainly
she's just
do.
Like plant person in name primarily, but like
oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I know the Doctor Who plant lady. Sure.
I'm picturing sort of like that, just kind
Love
of
it.
Vaguely, maybe to reflect with metal bits taped on, maybe with some like flowers or something.
Yeah.
In there, and I think my character's name is Juniper.
Juniper's great. I like that. That's great.
Yes,
great name.
I think she uses she. I was gonna say she her, but I almost said she they, and so that feels right. So I'm going with it.
Go for it.
So I will be playing Juniper, she they, from a jungle planet yet to be named. Yeah, but I think my my character is a biologist, sort of someone who studies plants, animals, and just Actually, I may retcon that because I'm realizing this is the same character I've played in about 3 other things. At least one of which is potentially going to be released. So I think maybe she's an astronomer and she studies other planets. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I am Tarks is a static farmer. I don't quite know what that means, but I don't have to.
I love that.
I envision in the same way like moisture farming in Star Wars is sort of just like weird looking like buckets. I imagine the thing that I'm visualizing, the aesthetic associated with being a static farmer is big Tesla coils and big whatever those glass balls are that make your hair stick out, the names of which I don't remember, where the lightning
Yes, I know
surges.
exactly what you mean.
Don't know the name of them, but that thing. Like, you see those things and they're on giant poles, and like, we collect that kind of static from the air and it feeds into generators, and we use that power for question mark. We'll find out in play or we won't.
Yep.
Who knows?
I think aesthetically, sort of the stuff I work with, the stuff I use is, imagine steampunk if everything was made of wood.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Woodpunk, kind of. So a lot of just way like Rube Goldberg almost technology.
Love it.
All
love it.
And just, yeah, we don't have a lot of metal in use, so we get creative with things that can be easily replaced when they chip.
That's good stuff. I really that's got my wheels turning.
Oh yeah, your wooden wheels?
Yes. Well, they're static wheels, so they're actually sort of balls of electricity.
Incredible. Okay. Then the second thing we do for character creation is I will ask you, and you will ask me, what is something about my character that you find intriguing?
It's that you look to the stars. Like, you have it is your job, and also, and like, thus the thing that you do for a living, and that drives you, is that you look out there. You look to the stars. You have a broader picture of the universe than what is directly around you. I think that Tarks does not have that. Is very, what is in front of him is kind of all that there is, and I think that he embodies that very specifically. Like, it is, and to that they look to the stars, that she is someone that is examining things on a higher level is fascinating.
Okay. I think what Juniper finds fascinating about Tarks is that, as much as I want to say, what the heck is static farming? I think what she really finds interesting about Tarks is, you described this as generic waste planet. That Tarks lives and is happy on a place where green isn't common, at least in the way that it is. And that sort of living without essentially what she, in her sort of worldview, considers luxury. Trees are what give us so much. Some of it comes from the ground, but, lots of trees around, easy to make stuff out of trees. And she kind of finds it fascinating that Tarks lives a mostly treeless existence, and that's, wild to her.
And I think that kind of embodies what that kind of itself embodies what Tarks finds intriguing, because I think that Tarks never once questioned that there were trees in Juniper's world, or that where they live is not a weird junkyard rock quarry. That was simply, well, yeah, that's where Juniper lives. It's that kind of, there is an inherent questioning versus unquestioning there that I think Tarks is the sort of person that, not in a negative way, but just in a sense of, is just not curious about those sorts of things, and is more focused on tangible things that are directly in front of him.
Makes sense. Yeah. Finally, after asking these two questions, we'll take a moment to establish how we're interacting. Is this the medium will inform the fiction, so decide between yourselves. Are you writing correspondence over tumultuous seas? Are we using an innate telepathic connection across dimensions, or video chatting between planets in a single star system? Do I call you on my Pine phone? Do we, have just a hole in reality that opens up accidentally every once in a while, stuff like that?
I think what I'd like to propose, pulling on science fantasy, and also on the very specific sort of affectionately budget challenged sci-fi sources that we've already been pulling on. I think that we communicate through holograms, but the way those holograms are represented is the same way that spaceships are represented in the David Lynch Dune movie, which is just rooms appear. A room, it just appears as a room that suddenly a wall melts away and there is another room that we walk between that that's there but not really there. So it's sort of we only get this one room's worth of what the world looks like for the other person in this sort of half holographic and half it's half holographic and half psychic and half simulated thing, where when our interactions begin, a room simply takes shape, but that room is, I cannot leave the room where you have initiated this call, and you cannot when you appear in my space. Kind of
like in the sequels where Kylo and Rey have that force connection, and suddenly they're just in each other's space, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Very much that same kind of energy where it's sort of just, it's that very, and I think it's very spatial, right? It is very almost claustrophobic in the way that those shots in Last Jedi are very kind of the frame keeps cutting both of them off, and they keep circling each other in this very particular way.
Perfect. Okay. And we, I know we brought up rank out. We start out liking each other, I imagine. Give me a sec.
I think so. That feels good. I don't think that I don't think there's anything about either of us off the bat that feels like we would be on like opposing sides of anything.
Because I've had a friend ask if he could play this enemies to lovers, and I was like, surely. I haven't done it yet, but surely.
Absolutely. There's nothing in the rules that says you can't play an enemy.
Exactly.
Like, hearing you say those words, I immediately am like, yeah, obviously that's a thing that can and should happen. And not in this particular story, but it immediately speaks to me of going like, oh, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, once we have our worlds established, we each must choose a suit of cards to correspond with our world. It's recommended that one player chooses a black suit and the other a red suit, but it's not required. It's, what suit do you think best suits the soundstage that Tarks grew up on?
I think either diamonds or spades, depending on if you were feeling strongly about a black suit or a red one. I think either diamonds or spades.
I was feeling pretty strongly clubs.
Then I think diamonds feels good. It feels like rock. It is the epitome of artificial, and that feels very good.
Nice. Okay. So now I will shuffle these around. The unfortunate thing about having saved this deck for playing this game, unfortunately all the cards are still in order, so shuffle. It's going to be a little bit more imperative. So that it's not just, 1, 1, 2, 2. But yeah, I think this is the first thing I'm using this deck for.
Oh, that makes me happy. I'm glad.
Breaking out the champagne of cards. So I am shuffling a little bit. I'm not shuffling too heavily because order doesn't really, it's not like a poker game where order is very important. It's pretty important, but, it's kind of funny if you open with, a big card. My last playtest with Jack, who I believe has been on the show before, to your stations, was we opened with, I think, a face card. So it was like right off the bat, we opened with a missed opportunity. It was very...
that's good. That is good. That's juicy.
Yeah. So now, about 2/3 of the way down, I will place both jokers as a pair. Because once one person draws a joker, the other person theoretically would also draw the joker, but in this case, I'm just going to be pulling 2 jokers out of the deck myself.
All right, draws our first card.
Okay. Okay. The first card is the 6 of diamonds. I'm starting my turn first.
All right.
Is that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I will be asking a leading question, and you will answer, and then I will talk about how that affects my world as well. So I think the first leading question Juniper will sort of ask is, what do celebrations look like on your world? Going big with this one.
Celebrations on Tarx's world, which I am going to call... I'm going to call it Heap. Heap feels like a good name for this world. It feels like a good working class name for this world. Heap, celebrations on Heap are big. They are... The cultural norm is very thoroughly work hard, play hard. It is really almost for any occasion, right? Like they are not tied to religious ceremony. They are not tied to, big like harvests or anything. If there is reason to celebrate, then we will celebrate, and we will celebrate pretty goddamn hard. So the thing about them is, like I said, they're for any occasion, and it is very specifically, they are very specifically like, I think towns are small. I think that there are not like big cities. I think it is more, there are small communities, but there, like, Heap is a pretty small planet, and the clusters of people are pretty functional in nature. It's more like, we are gathered around a particular mountain, and we are like harvesting things out of this mountain. But I think that when a celebration happens, it's everybody. It is your family, it is your friends, it is the other people in the community. People will show up to party, and there is music, and there is laughing, and there are fireworks. It is a blast and a half. Celebration is a big thing on the world of Heap.
Wonderful. On the jungle planet, which I have yet to name, I just keep coming back to the woods, but I kind of like that as like the area in which Juniper lives, and not necessarily the whole planet.
Mm-hmm.
But in the woods, I think parties are smaller, but they also try to find every excuse to, celebrate. There's a lot of, celebration isn't, always this massive party where everyone's invited, but this is a group of people who likes to find reasons to celebrate and throw a party, and lots of I think the aesthetic of their parties is a lot more late night on the deck behind the house, barbecue, as opposed to big New Year's Eve celebration. Like twinkling lights, like fireflies a lot, because, you don't want to be lighting fires when everything is made of wood.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So you pretty much, in your local community, at least one family is going to be celebrating something most nights.
I like that. I really like that. I think that's probably a thing that we bond over. Like, I think it's probably a thing that, like, in most of our conversations, when we meet and talk, like, that's probably the icebreaker is, what are we celebrating tonight? And then we kind of raise a toast to that, and we kind of mutually celebrate these and like there's the kind of joy, the kind of bonding joy that comes from hearing about some small town celebration is probably like a mutual icebreaker bonding point between the two of us.
Yeah.
All right, give me our next card.
It is the 4 of diamonds. So you establish something about your world. I don't have to ask you a leading question, and then ping it over to me. 4 has not been in play yet, so it can be whatever you'd like.
So the thing that I'm going to establish about my world is, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I am stealing this. I am stealing it from a show that I have not watched, that I don't believe that I can watch because I don't believe it's out yet, but that I keep being bombarded with commercials for. That I might not watch it, but like the thing about it, and like is probably about more than this. But there's a spooky hole. I don't know. I don't know what this show on Amazon is about, but there are cowboys, and there seems to be a prominent feature that there's a spooky hole in the ground. And there's a spooky hole in my community on Heath, which I think is built around this sort of like half mountain, half rock quarry, hill, half junk pile, which I think is like a thing that is harvested and mined and like is a like resource center for the community. There's a sinkhole at the base of that seems to be endless, that is like the cause for great consternation, right? Like it is, there are community meetings and discussions about like, have we sent anything into the hole? Do we patrol it? Like, do we need to move? Like, have we drawn up borders around it? Like, the sinkhole is the local talking point.
And it doesn't seem to be growing. It seems to be about like 4 feet, 4 feet in diameter and just infinitely empty. But it's just this 4-foot hole in the ground that like every party that you go to, there's conversations happening around like what somebody thinks the sinkhole might be. There is like great political drama unfolding about like how do we handle the sinkhole. And in Tarx's world and his community among his family and friends and the people that he knows, this is about the biggest source of drama that they have encountered in the last several months. And it's definitely like ominous and weird and kind of terrifying.
Oh, is the spooky hole new?
It's definitely new. I think it's popped up in the last month. Like it's fairly new and it just opened up in the ground. No one has fallen in it. There have probably been some stuff that's fallen in, but it's just like a hole has emerged and we're just very confused by it. Very, like, some people are kind of amused by it, but it's definitely just this sort of weird, ominous thing that has developed in the last month.
So is this like local folklore, or is this, what is sort of the, kind of, what do you want to be associated with the 4 of diamonds, the number 4? Is it local folklore? Is it, something that can branch between both worlds?
I think the thing that is bridging is local is local. I think local folklore is a good way to put it, or like actually I'm gonna call it local happenings. Like what the thing is that has caused the drama in your neck of the woods, pun intended. Like what is the source of great turmoil and drama? So local happenings.
Okay. So yeah, in the woods, where Juniper is, as an astronomer, she spends a ton of time like looking up and looking at the sky. She does not live in the area with the tallest trees. But recently there has been a tree from a little while, like a little walk away, that has been partially uprooted and tilted to now be in the eye line of the observatory. No one knows how this tree got slightly uprooted. No one knows why, but it was a very tall tree, and it is now in the eye line of this observatory. And so the wider community is like, oh, what happened to that tree? Why did it fall down? What could have done that? There wasn't a big storm. But among the very local community that Juniper is a part of, they are annoyed because they have to figure out how to move that tree so they can do their jobs.
Yeah. It is a professional inconvenience.
Yes. So this tree is a mystery. Something tilted this tree, and now it is blocking our telescopes. And there are 2 aspects of complaint about it, which is mysterious. That's a really big tree. What if that happened to my tree? And then the professional of whatever. It's scary, all right, but come on, it's blocking. I was going to say Venus, but that implies, blocking Cerberus 3 or whatever.
Like, yeah, like it's legally distinct from Venus.
Yeah. It's blocking Aphrodite. So the big fallen tree.
All right, I like that. I love it. I'm excited. What's our next card?
I was real quick typing. If you want to type things down, the reason we're typing things down is because when eventually the 4 of clubs gets drawn, that sort of local weirdness will come back into play in the story and will create either a conflict or an interesting moment between our characters. So that's why
Love it.
Writing down is as important as it is. Ooh, the King of Diamonds, our first face card. So, For each face card you draw, you get to establish a missed opportunity or complication you have run into that prevents you from meeting but still pulls you closer. These complications may be practical, emotional, or anything else, as long as they highlight the difficulties of crossing between worlds, figuratively or literally. So the way mischances work is the suit doesn't necessarily matter for face cards and aces.
Mm-hmm.
That's mostly for the numbers. That's the word. But so there will be some sort of missed opportunity, some way we, could have become closer either physically or emotionally and didn't, and how that missed opportunity brings us closer. So, I think what happens is after this sort of great tree kind of moves into the way, the astronomers kind of have to deal with kind of mapping different regions of the sky, like completely uprooting, no pun intended, their entire operation. And so for a little bit, there's just fewer and fewer calls. And I know we said celebrations are a big deal and pretty constant for both of us. But I think there was a personal celebration in, I think maybe even just a birthday in Juniper's life. But because of work and because of the family obligations of celebration, we couldn't, share that celebration together because there just wasn't time to step into the shared space.
I love that. I love that a lot. That's great. And I think that to up that to throw some gasoline on that fire. I think Tarks knew. Like, I think Tarks knew that it was Juniper's birthday, or like the birthday to someone close to Juniper. Like, and this was a moment where Tarks was very consciously like planning to celebrate this with them, and simply like he just didn't get the chance to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so sad.
It'll all work out. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right.
Okay. Now it is your draw, and you drew.
All right.
Ooh, the Jack of Clubs.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I think the complication that has sprung up that keeps us from celebrating together, from meeting, but pulls us closer. I think there is like an ion storm. Like, there is something that like makes it harder for us to physically communicate. Like, there is there actually I think it's not even an ion storm. There is a disruption in one of the processing plants on Heap, like our local processing plant where we feed all of this stuff to, and where we feed the static that we farm into and the junk that we mine. And like, there's this processing plant. One of the generators on this plant blew and like sprayed static into the air that kind of acted a little bit like a chaff spray. Like, it kind of blocked communication, and we were kind of mid conversation, and we were having this really wonderful conversation, when suddenly I think that there's a real almost kind of horror moment where each of us in the other person's space, like the space itself, starts to distort and warp and like, become a little bit of like a fun house, and then the communication cuts out and we aren't able to speak together for a little while. Like, we aren't able to easily communicate, and we have to find maybe other ways of staying connected in the wake of this. And the other half of that is that it pulls me into community work, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to repair that generator, and it just puts a hurdle in the way of us having our regular conversations.
I'm picturing sort of, it gets like, the setting gets funhousey, and we start doing like those TikTok filters that are like the weird glitchy, like
Yeah,
things get weird.
100%. Yeah, it just gets weird and then cuts off, and there's probably a moment of real like terror of like, are they okay?
Yeah, and that question kind of gets hard to answer for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely, spooky. Maybe it's the spooky hole's fault. We don't know.
People are saying there's speculation.
That damn spooky hole, which is how I have it written in our notes.
Good. I'm glad. I appreciate that you've written it exactly the way that I would want it written.
Dear God. The 2 of diamonds. I promise I shuffled very, very much. It's just one of these days that it's going to be a lot of diamonds at the start.
All good. No problem whatsoever. We don't have anything mapped to the 2. So I think for the number 2...
did you draw the Jack of Clubs or did I? Hold
on. Let's see.
I think you drew.
I did. Yeah, I drew the Jack of Clubs. So yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Introduce the 2 of diamonds.
Yes. So the leading question I will ask you is, I think building off of that, sort of, what is community life and work like? What does that sort of look like? How does that manifest on the heap?
It's very work focused. There's the work that you do for you, for your family, for you, like, but that also maybe doesn't exist as much. Like everything is, it's very collective. It's very collectivist. It's very, we are all like working intertwined in ways. Like we have our individual passions and jobs and the things that we do, but there's work that needs to be done in the community, and I think that we see that play out over the next several weeks. I'm a static farmer. Like I know how to manage static coils, and I know how to manage the collection of static and the transfer of static batteries. I don't know how to rebuild a generator and how to like fix building damage, but damned if I don't learn, because that is the thing that the community needs, right? Like the jobs that we have and the roles that we have drop very quickly when a particular need arises that is larger than our individual wants. Like that is, and it is not necessarily a burden. It is simply the way that life is, right? It's simply, if people need something, then we all got to step up and find a way to address that need.
Yeah. I think very much the opposite. In the woods, people tend to specialize in this community. Specializing is sort of encouraged culturally, and so there's a very almost elegant system of something goes wrong and you immediately switch spots with the person who knows how to fix it. There's, I described the technology as being like Rube Goldberg-esque wood punk. There's a system where you're like, oh no, something's gone wrong. You hit the something's gone wrong button, marble rolls down a thing, knocks a hammer, rings a bell, well, not a bell because, like
a wood chime.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a wood chime. And kind of alerts the person that's specialized in fixing this, and it's they're sitting by their desk drinking tea, and then suddenly they're up, go and do their specialized thing, and you in that moment have that interaction with them, and probably off work specialization doesn't drive you into like social holes. It's not like the engineers and the astronomers only hang out with the engineers and the astronomers. because
it's just you have a job. If you're the wind chime repair person, then you are very like, it almost sounds a little bit like 0 to 60. It's like your job is either you got to fix this wind chime right now, or you're pretty comfortable and you hang out.
Yeah, and because of this like hyper specialization, I think it actively encourages people to, get to know other people, because it's not like 8 of you are working shift at the same time with,
you have your job and then your job is done. Like, you don't have ongoing projects. You have, this is the thing that needs to be done right now, and then it's done, and then we move on and we hang out.
The exception are, people whose job is to experiment, fuck around and find out. Ooh, can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. 100%.
Yeah. People like astronomers whose job it is to, fuck around and find out, have that kind of 60 to 0 of, oh, my thing's broken. I'll go, I'll just chill for a while, it kind of has those two different modes. It's very binary. Either you're doing something or you're not, and you're hanging out with people.
All right. Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea that, like, I love both aspects of that there are the people that are like, we work until we don't work. And then there are the people that are like, well, I got to figure, like, I'm going to play around. And then when we have a solution, then my job is done.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Very interesting cultures. I love it. I love this a lot. Yeah, I think it fits even with the celebrations things we established. The work hard, play hard versus celebrate when you want, when you can.
Yeah. And it's a much smaller celebration because it's who's around at this moment that isn't working on something.
Very coherent. We got the 10 of clubs. So it's your turn to ask me a leading question.
I want to ask you, what does a normal living situation look like in the woods? What is a household arrangement and, like, a day in the life of an ordinary household?
Okay. Like you said with the original inspiration for the heap, sometimes the funny answer comes to you and you got to go with the funny answer.
You got to go with the funny answer. Like, I fully encourage, if something makes you laugh, sometimes that's got to be the thing that you put on paper.
You know where Chip and Dale live in Rescue Rangers? Like, the little, like, hole in the tree with all wooden furniture and, like,
I do. I immediately put my head in one hand, but yes, I do indeed. Yeah. And it feels exactly perfect.
Yeah, people live inside the trees. I think family units tend to be small and fluid because people kind of, these things are probably bigger than California redwoods, but probably not much bigger. So it's not like you have the floor space for like a 4-bedroom house in one tree. It's kind of very vertical. And so shared living spaces are kind of on the smaller end and a little bit more communal. Privacy is less of a big deal. It's not, people are, okay living constantly in proximity with each other. And because of this, when privacy is asked for, privacy is usually granted, but living situations are fluid because eventually, you're spending a lot of time with these people, might as well live with them, right? There's not, there's a lot of studio apartments, but they're bigger than a New York studio.
Yeah. Right. I get exactly what you're putting down.
And I think, a normal day in the life is very like, I just keep coming back to Chip and Dale of like, they've got, things kind of move quickly in the woods. Breakfast happens and then you go off to work and then you go about your day. You probably spend time at least 3 different, cubbies throughout an average day because people are just constantly coming and going. And I think it's very fluid.
I like that. I love that. I think that family structure is very fluid on Heap as well. Like, I think you don't have, I think you have a lot of people who move, like I think a family unit on Heap is very driven by, it's work focused. We said community is work focused, and I think that family is also kind of work focused. I think that family units naturally coalesce around people who do like you. It is a culture of living and being a family. Like I got halfway through a sentence and then realized what I was about to say, but you're not just coworkers, you're family.
But literally.
But literally and non-toxically, like it is a sense of like we do this job together. You know, if we are working this farm together, if we are all farm hands, we live together, we eat together, like we are a family to like, and we take care of each other and protect each other and like keep each other happy and comfortable because we are the people that are experiencing this work and that are sharing in the love and the joy and the practice of this work. And therefore, like, that work takes on a very kind of ritual, a very kind of cherished, a very almost kind of, like a very spiritual quality to it. And that the act of sharing work with someone is it is a very powerful thing. And so family, like, your family is static farmers. Like, my family is the static farmers in my community. And, you know, the sense of it takes a village to raise a child is very true, because as a child as someone growing up on Heap finds the thing that they're passionate about, they move, like that family takes them in, right? Like if a young person shows up and is like, I want to know everything about static farming, we take them in and they take on our name and they become part of our family. And then if in 6 months they say, well, I'm actually not interested in this, I want to go pursue art, we find the local community artists and we say, here, this person wants to try being part of your family. And if it works, it works. And, you know, you find the place where you belong. And part of that is finding the work that you feel fulfilled in doing.
Yeah. Here is our son. He's your son now.
Yeah, it is very, here's our son. He is your son now.
That's awesome.
That's a lot of also how like learning and growth and education works is a lot of apprenticeships, and it is a lot of, you practice a thing and you find out if it's what you're meant to do, and if it's not, you try something else.
Yeah. Nice. Very, very cool.
I love it. I'm loving this. This is great. This is wonderful.
I'm glad you're enjoying. I hope you continue to enjoy, because I've just drawn an ace. So time for some heartbreak. The aces hold a very strong meaning. And if one of you draws the ace before you reach the jokers, regardless of its suit, you can decide to meet up then and there. If you do, describe the first meeting of you and your soulmate. Now describe why it cannot last, at least in the moment. If we do not choose to meet, how did you two narrowly miss each other? What prevented you from finally being together? And I think, I don't think we meet up just yet.
No, I don't think so.
But I think what happens is, I work for the astronomers. And so, eventually, there comes a call to expedition beyond, the surface of this jungle planet. And, I think, we see the spaceship and it's very much just like, Treasure Planet style, a ship. That is like, a boat. And, my character, is like, oh, that would be awesome. If we're going to a couple different planets, I would love to be able to go visit the Heap. And so I think she attempts to get on this ship. And I think, because I don't think this is necessarily one of like the first voyages off planet, but I think it's still early technology.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're still in a spot that kind of sucks and is kind of much like how astronauts in real life have to be in perfect physical condition. I think she has a long-term injury. And so on this type of voyage, she is not able to go because the technology isn't still good enough to help support her, and she her physical injury prevents her from going to see her friend in this moment.
Yeah, that hurts, but it's good. That hurts good. That hurts real good.
Yeah, I think the audience sees a scene of this massive ship docking on the heap, showing that, yeah, she would have gone to the heap if she were able.
Mm-hmm.
But, unfortunately, yeah, it's tough.
That's good stuff.
Yes. And so that is what kept us from finally being together. And I think Tarks knows this. I think they very much tell Tarks, like, before and after. So everyone feels the weight of opportunity. And I think they don't realize that there was a chance she wasn't going to get on.
Yeah, I think I like that. I think that's good. What is our next card?
Ooh, the 6 of clubs. This is a something about celebration. So you ask me a question about celebration and how it affects our relationship. I'll read the actual text. The second time you draw that number, you must either frame a scene or ask a leading question as per the suit. The scene or question should create a scenario in which this detail becomes relevant to the relationship between the two soulmates. The detail being celebration. A brief scene that you are the one to set up.
What is the first holiday that we celebrate after that expedition happens? How is our celebration different than it would have been previously? And what happens to make it something that we remember?
I think the first holiday we celebrate after this is sort of essentially like a galactic Independence Day, something that is weirdly enough shared by our two planets. Like a you know, high fantasy, high sci-fi galactic Independence Day. And I think you asked how do we make it special, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what happens is we meet up in this room, like the teleconference room, and for the first time, it looks different. We probably Tarks with, static farming and, technological expertise that's not made of wood. I think sets up a temporary shared space that looks not like the heap or like the woods, but like what it would look like if someone decorated a kind of cubby in a tree as if it were a heap home.
Oh, that's beautiful. I absolutely love that.
And I think if we hadn't tried to meet up, I don't think anyone necessarily would have thought of that. I think it would have just been like, oh, happy Galactic Independence Day, and we each bring our drink from our own side into the room and kind of deal with it. But I think having that missed opportunity to make this bigger and to make this more memorable, it becomes the embodiment of this shared space. And I I don't know if it remains like that. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I kind of like it if it does, but I also like it if it doesn't. There's benefits to both.
Yeah. I think Tarks probably does keep it like that. I think that it is there's an element of playfulness there, and I think of joy that I think that Tarks doesn't. I think there's an element of playfulness there that, like, it's one of those things that, it's when you decorate your room for the first time and you kind of look around and feel that kind of giddiness. I think that Tarks definitely feels like a distinct joy of, like, oh, this is what my room looks like now, and probably, like, maintains it in a way that, like, is very consciously done, and it becomes this practice for Tarks that he follows through on, is keeping up this very particular decor, which is not something that he's used to doing.
Yeah, I love that. Things kind of, that celebration comes and goes, and it's a blast. The part that sticks out is just how much work must have gone into that at the very least. But
absolutely.
Yeah. I love what you wrote for 10 of Clubs. I didn't get to say it in the moment, but just Chippendale. That's perfect.
Good. I'm glad.
In the shared space, is there an actual model train instead of, like,
Oh, yes. For sure. There is for sure a model train that, yeah.
Perfect. I believe it's my turn.
I believe it is.
The 9 of Diamonds. Yeah. This feels very fitting to answer. What does, the decoration of the heap look like? What is, what amenities, what sort of visuals?
I think a wooden, the wooden train, like, the train is specifically wooden. It is very specifically, like, there is not really a train in Heap. Like, it's not really a thing. Or I guess that is Tarks' room. But, like, otherwise, Heap, I think it is, the decor is very. I'm going to push away from the impulse that, like, it's not decorative, because I think that is, like, an overly easy way to paint this. Yeah. I think what is a big decorative trend in Heap that I think we see reflected in Tarks' room is handmade. It's almost like you make what, like, you decorate with what you harvest, or, like, what, like, I think it is art based on, like, what you do. Like, I have a dear friend who, like, in my actual life, Dan, he's gonna hear this. Dan, hello. Who makes bronze art because he works with, like, bronze coils.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think it's, like, a lot of that element, right? I think it's a lot of, like, if you are a stone worker, you make your house, your space is decorated with carved stone and polished stone and, like, stone, like, sculpture. And if you work with metal, like, if you harvest metal, your place is decorated with little metal sculptures and little metal art pieces. And I think that Tarks' place previously, and probably still, like, integrates this into his new sort of decor style, has what I can only describe as static art, like metal pieces that have been, like, charged with static to do sort of gravity-defying things.
That's awesome.
And it's this sense of, like I said, you make, like, art is itself a kind of work, and you make art based on the work that you do. It is a way for you to get comfortable with the thing that you work on. And thus, you make it in this space that is built around. You make it with the stuff that you work on, because that is how you become comfortable with the stuff that you work on, and that is how you add art to this community, right? Like, it's part of the work.
The decor in a house in the woods looks to what we on Earth would describe as horrible. Because it is so many colors that a lot of them don't match, because who lives there is so fluid constantly that, like, when you move to a place, you bring your stuff with you, of course. But it's also customary when you move out of a place to leave something of yours. so that it is forever part of that place. So, the more people who have lived in a place, the more sort of different colors you see. I think this isn't like a conscious cultural decision of everyone must have their color, but, a lot of people tend to just kind of grow attached to one color. Juniper's is very, kind of greenish, it's actually very similar to the color of these cards, that kind of pale green.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of her stuff is, pale green, like there's little like tiny wooden carved owls, tiny, people bring like plants with them, like potted plants, just a lot of stuff. And then as you move, traditionally, you leave something there. Usually people start to get into a habit. If they are someone who tends to move around a lot, they tend to get into a habit of, having a signature thing they can leave somewhere. Like, I think Juniper is probably a fairly, fluid person. She kind of moves around a lot because I'm picturing them as sort of very social. And I think they have just a little tiny pale green owl carving that they make when they first move in and gets its spot of honor on the mantle. And then, they leave it there when they leave and they go to somewhere else and make another one. And so you can kind of tell the history of a place by the decoration, both who's currently living there and who used to live there.
I love that. I really love that. That's wonderful.
Thank you. I thought of it and I was like, this is my favorite world building I've ever done, I think.
This is good. This is just good. Like, this is just good world building energy, and it makes me very happy. Would we like to draw the Joker?
If you'd like.
I think it's time. I'm looking at the clock. I think it's time that we drew the Joker card.
Okay. I am shuffling through. Wow, I put it on the lower end of 2/3, so probably wise. I kind of eyeballed it, and yeah, we had, I think, 7 cards to go. So yeah, that makes sense. I think in this case, you drew the first Joker.
All right, which means that you must immediately draw the second Joker.
Yes. There it is.
We have finally met up with our other half, whether we're ready or not. Regardless of if we plan to end play here or not, be sure to emphasize the importance of this moment. No matter the circumstance, no matter how extravagant or mundane the moment is for the rest of the world, this is the moment we've been waiting for our entire lives. I think some time has passed. I think that the ship that we see touch down on Heap is not strictly wooden. It is like a wood and metal biomechanical hybrid. Like, it truly is some of the technology from Heap, some of the technology from the woods, like really having merged and like found ways to create like a harmonious best of both worlds situation. And that is the ship that we see Juniper walk off of. And that is the moment that Juniper sees that Tarks is there when she steps off of the ship. And I don't know, I haven't decided in my head how much time has passed, but I think that, like, this is the moment when finally travel has gotten to a place and communication has gotten to a place where this trip can be comfortably made by anyone. And this is the moment that, like, you finally get to take that trip that you've been wanting to take for ages and ages.
And I think Juniper kind of, still, because it's, a long-term injury, isn't walking with a limp, but is, walking carefully, has been sitting for a long time. And in something pulled from my own experience, the second she sees Tarks, despite what is best for her, just immediately runs down this runway, and just jumps into Tarx's arms and just the biggest like kiss on the cheek, like, oh, I'm so glad to see you. Like, just almost takes him out. Probably not, because he's, a metal man.
And I think that we see time has passed on Tarks by way of there is more metal jutting out and like more pieces are metal. And specifically, I imagine that the arm that he catches Juniper in has grown and like kind of reaches to the ground and is this sort of like multi-jointed like metal, almost like a construction arm, and like kind of effortlessly catches them in it and gives them a big kiss on the cheek and a hug, and like calls out to everyone like, tonight this is the party. And like everybody already kind of knew that because the ship touched down, but like tonight this is a larger party than usual, which is saying something on here.
Yeah.
Is we are celebrating us being in the same place at the same time.
I think we get a shot of that party, and Tarks, whatever he's wearing, like party wise, added onto it is a flower crown that is matching Juniper's that she made for both of them.
I love that a lot. I love that so much. Yeah. And then with that, I think we see this big party playing out. And I think that we see there are tree people, and there are metal people, and we're all celebrating, and the two of us are dancing together.
Potted plants in the corners, like having freshly brought as like party gifts.
Yeah. And we pan out on this, and I think that is game.
Yay!
Wonderful. I am smiling ear to ear. That was lovely.
Every time I finish playing this game, I'm always grinning ear to ear. The relationships are so cute. This was amazing. This was so much fun. I love Tarks. I love Juniper. Their relationship is so cute.
It was nice. It's lovely, and it put a big smile on my face. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having
with me. So real quick, before we wrap up, where can people find you, your work, and the game online?
You can find myself, on Twitter at Lillianapolis, like my name and Indianapolis combined. You can find my work at lillianapolis.itch.io. You can find The World Through Your Eyes specifically at lillianapolis.itch.io/The World Through Your Eyes, all dashes in between. And check me out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for doing the show. This was incredible and wonderful. And for now, I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me.
Thanks, Past Me. And thanks again to Lilliana for coming on the show. That game was beautiful. It was an incredible experience. I'm so happy that we got to play it. It was a really wonderful game. Thank you again. Be sure to go pick up your own copy of The World Through Your Eyes at lillianapolis.itch.io or check the show notes for more information. And be sure to follow Lily on Twitter at Lillianapolis. Then while you're on Twitter, follow us at Party of One Pod, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast. Head to our merch store at bit.ly/partyofonemerch. Join our Discord at bit.ly/partyofonediscord, and if you enjoyed the show, consider leaving us a nice iTunes review, a Spotify review, a Podbean review, Podchaser review. They all have reviews nowadays. Leave us a review somewhere. You can also support the show financially at patreon.com/JeffStormer or ko-fi.com/JeffStormer. Or you can just tell a friend that you enjoy the show, tell us you like the show on Twitter. All these things help the show find new audiences, and they make my day a little bit better. If you're finishing this episode and you're like, God, I wish I had another podcast to listen to pass my time, boy, do I have one for you. All My Fantasy Children is a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast on the One Shot Podcast Network, wherein every week, my best friend Aaron Catano-Sias and I take a listener-submitted prompt. We spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. New episodes drop every Friday-ish at oneshotpodcast.com. Party of One, as always, is produced and edited by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran featuring the D&D Sluggers, and the Party of One logo is by Evan Rowland. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates, coming onto the show as a guest, or about press coverage of the show, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And, unless I am mistaken, I believe that is all we do here, so until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.